AI fails because humans couldn't figure out how to or don't want to work with it, right? They stop using something the moment it stops delivering, because bureaucracy could just kill you, right? And 80% of actual customer context is unstructured, right? You cannot hold agents accountable, but you do have to have automated guardrails for the agents. Previous AI waves gave you a tool, and this wave gives you an actor. Many agents, it's exhausting today, right? It is hard. I think the companies that are going to succeed
Welcome back to another episode of the Chief AI Officer Show. Today, I'm excited to bring you Olga Lagunova, who is the Chief Innovation and Technology Officer at GoTo. Olga, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Ben, for inviting me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, before we get started today, can you give our listeners a little background on yourself and what GoTo does as well?
Absolutely. So a few words about me. I've spent more than 20 years in high-tech industry. Last 12 years, I've been working in the intersection of data, AI, and in the products, and also business transformation. Um, so my passion is about figuring out how to actually use these technologies to create business impact for our customer and for the company. So we know that just deploying new tools, new technology doesn't work. So what does it work? How do the humans and AI intersect? And what make it works and when it doesn't work? So at GoTo, I guide both the AI product strategy and our internal AI transformation, which means that I'm working both sides of the same problem simultaneously. And the frameworks and principle we use to both develop AI in our products and bring it to our customers, and what we do internally, they're the same ones. We apply it to both. And it kind of gives me excitement about the credibility, because we don't do anything for our, it don't apply anything to our customer problems that we don't also experiment with internally and make sure that it works. So I hope this kind of background gives me an unvarnished view of where AI creates real value, and where organization, including ours, still have work to do. So before GoTo, I was first Chief Data Analytics Officer at Pitney Bowes, and a lot of learning on what works and what doesn't work through the transformation also come from this experience. Maybe a few words you asked about GoTo. GoTo, you can look at goto.com. That's our company's website. It's a global SaaS company with product portfolio in two main areas: business communication, cloud business communication, and we have brands like GoTo Connect and Grasshopper, and also IT management. And a lot of customers know that with the brand LogMeIn. And we basically build software that keeps business running. And what's interesting about our company, and actually was true for Pitney Bowes as well, we work with a broad spectrum of customers, from really solopreneurs, like one or two people, to small and medium businesses, to the large enterprises and largest global system integrators. So a large percent, very large percent of our businesses are SMBs, and a lot of things that we've learned and I've learned to a large degree come from this customer base. And we can talk about it. I think there are a lot of interesting learnings that we have from SMBs that are applicable to enterprises as well.
I think that's one of the interesting parts to start on, because everyone right now, particularly in smaller companies, right, are rethinking their relationship to technology, rethinking how they use AI in their business. And you see that across so many different customers. What do you feel is broken about the way people are sold AI and then how they actually use it in their business? Where do you see the places that we need to fix, and where is a lot of the value in your eyes?
I think that the one thing that is good, right? If we look across the industry, the adoption is no longer a problem, right? Humans adopt AI. Like you bring AI tool into your company, and the chance is that maybe not all of the tools depends, but people will be using them. I think what we see right now is that adoption is there, but the outcomes are not there. And it's probably the really interesting thing to figure it out, right? What's happening here. So I'll share my perspective. Like you see this in the numbers that come from McKinsey and come from Gartner, right? From different parts of the companies, different industries. Um, we actually have our own pulse of work uh, survey, and we did it 2026 and kind of looked at 20, we asked 2,500 people, whether they're IT leaders or just people in the companies, the same questions, right? And this is what we found, which is probably very much aligned with what industry says. Um, 98% of IT leaders and people in the companies are using AI. Like it's a really big adoption. People love AI. I mean, they do use it at work in terms of they find it compelling. But 70% say like, yeah, we use it probably like not always right way or how we should be using it, kind of bending the rules a little bit, and 80% saying definitely not using it to its potential, right? And the other interesting thing is 43% of IT leaders just saying we are not measuring AI return on investment. We just don't do that. We don't do it well. Something happens. So there is like this gap. It is true between we won the battle on adoption, but we didn't uh, haven't yet reached the level of maturity and how we use it in our environment. Um, I think this is probably at fault, you can say, both companies who sell software and also how the companies adopt it. When vendors, and I would say, we all everybody who sells software should be very thoughtful about business outcomes, right? Because what we don't want to do is just to sell the tool and say, hey, the sales cycle ends at deployment, and now, dear company, go figure it out how it's all going to work, how you're going to secure it, how you're going to make it useful for your business. So this kind of um, accountability for business outcomes, I think vendors like us should be definitely thinking about that, right? That's the values that we are bringing to the companies that we sell software to, and how does it look like? And also on the company side, we see it also. If you're not thoughtful, you will confuse the AI strategy with buying tools and putting them in the environment. But there is so much more to it that you need to think about it, including security, of course, but also humans, right? The AI enablement and business outcomes, and how do you measure it? I think it's a really interesting things to dig in. And if you'd like, we can look at it. Like, so I can share what we are doing. But I think that's what's kind of broken, right? We maybe it's not broken, but we're not there yet. It's a journey, and we didn't get to the right outcomes yet. I think for GoTo, and I am like very passionate about it because my whole experience with AI, starting from traditional AI, right? It's always been the same thing. AI fails because humans couldn't figure out how to or don't want to work with it, right? So this thought about what's practical and how to apply it to how to make it work with this combination of humans and AI, I think is super important. And we call it practical AI. It's kind of our principle. But yeah, it has to solve the business problem. You have to be able to measure it. It has to, you have to think about how it fits into your business, into your workflows, into the human world. How do you enable, especially with the generative AI, we know how much transformation is happening in every single job that we have today. So ignoring the human's anxiety or not knowing what the knowledge they need and how to enable them to be successful, that's a job that we all should be doing better, I think. And it's very important about, I am passionate about it. How do we do that properly?
You touched on a lot of things there that are very important that I hear many people on this show talk about, right? Which is this one, focusing on business impact. How do you think about ROI? There's interesting questions there where I think it's very important to align on business cases and know what the outcomes should be and how you want to measure them before you deploy something. There's also this other tension of focusing on short term ROI might blind you to some of the more truly transformative
I,
use cases that you could pursue within a company. And also with generative AI, what is so interesting is this, you know, the data science, more traditional ML methods that used to be common were a data science team or kind of like a foundational unit within a company doing projects and bringing them to stakeholders. Now it feels so much more democratized where the business units are bringing ideas, use cases, constantly using it and bringing that to, to the team that might be responsible for infrastructure or deployment across the whole company. That shift has been quite dramatic for some companies, and I think everyone is still trying to figure out what it means. There's so many, you hear all these stories of the companies in POC purgatory, right? That have all these pilots that never prove value, that never go into deployment. You have focused a lot, and you said it yourself, on practical AI. How do you tie things to business outcomes? How are you finding that balancing act both internally at GoTo between maybe long-term and short-term time horizons? And how are you seeing your customers think about it?
if you don't mind, I'll talk about the customers. I'll talk about us,
Mhm.
um, how we are considering it, how we are doing it. Uh, and I feel like what we are doing works. So happy to share with your audience. For the customers, I think I mentioned like SMBs, right? They defined our thinking because we do feel that we are champions for SMB businesses, and that's our mission in all our businesses, um, in our portfolio. So the SMBs have a very practical, pragmatic mindset, right? They don't tolerate complexity or opacity. They stop using something the moment it stops delivering. They don't have large data science or any data scientist teams, and they don't have potentially even big IT teams, right? They are very pragmatic how they think about what they expect from any technologies that they bring into into their business, and they demand this like return on investment, right? I need to run my business. If you're giving me something, I want it to work today, not 6 months later, but you need to show me that it works. And I think that's what I generally believe in, that the good AI experience should look like. And that's how our practical AI principles are built, right? So impact driven, right? It has to solve a very critical and real business challenge, and it has to be traceable to measurable business outcomes. And we have to help our customers to achieve that without very complex setups or a lot of, like, okay, you'll have to do these 20 things, go figure it out on your own. And I always tell the story, but I think the the best experiences we ever had with AI is Google Maps, right? Like, do you think about all AI that is there? No, it just works. Now, at some point, it was trying to drive us into the river or whatever. It doesn't do it anymore, right? They were like this, whatever, 7, 8, 10 years ago, these stories, but it works. It just works. We don't think about it. We don't think about how much I don't need to do anything to configure it. And that's the experiences that are so right for SMBs, and generally would be great if they're also right for the large enterprises. Though I do understand that in large enterprises, you have to do more. You have a more complex environment, there is more integration. That's absolutely true. But the end user experience, people who actually going to use AI at the end, their experience has to be exactly the same, whether you're looking for SMB or you're looking for 50,000 people companies. The end user is an end user. They just want their problem to be solved, right? And that's what we are aiming for, and we call it ambient AI, right? It's woven into business workflows. It's accelerating execution, and to do that, you really need to understand your customers and how they do the work. And this also goes into this human and AI, right? And interactions. And I think recently, the one thing that we see it everywhere, the things that we need to solve in within our company, and we're solving it for our customers, is trusted experience, right? Humans
Mm.
trust AI the same way we trust humans. You have to get the experience where you start seeing, yes, it works, especially if you're going to autonomous AI. And you need to earn this trust. You need to earn this trust from humans on all levels, right? From users, but also from the security team, from your customer security teams. There are a lot of trust levels that you need to think about, and how you are going to build it, and what the guardrails and everything that you need to do around it. So if that's how we build it for our customers, that's our principles, and I could give you examples there. But if you think about our transformation and how we approached it, we are using AI to not just augment our workflows, but really transform them, right? This is where the biggest business outcomes come into play. Whether you when you want to accelerate it, improve your go-to-market, or whether it's your R&D, it's your support, you need to think about it not just augmenting what humans do today or the workflows that are today, but you need to transform it in a very thoughtful way, rethinking how this workflows should work. And I think that's where the challenge comes, because in order to do that, you almost need to, you brought it up, right? Short term, long term. So you have to be strategic about it. And I think that's where the challenges, especially for enterprises and the large teams, come to, because transforming just one part of the way people do work does not give you this incredible acceleration. You have to get to the whole workflow changing, right? And it means changing how people do work. So you could see it in engineering. That's a big one, right? Like for engineers, for product, for UX, how we build the product is transformational to a degree that we probably 2 years ago we never thought it's going to be like that, right? But today we
Mm.
are all in the middle of it, and it requires change how we do work, how we the nature of our work, how our roles are. So there is not only technology, there is a big work just for the humans to learn how to do it differently. A lot of this requires investment upfront, so you can get to the outcomes on the other end. And that's I think the tension, not only from R&D, but it's the tension for every function that you're really trying to transform, like go to market. So in the company, like we are not a huge company, like we are 3,000 people company. It's like mid-size, right? Not startup, but it's a 3,000 people that every single person in the company is going through some significant learning, significant transformation. And so we thought about it, how we are going to do it. So there is business aspect. They have to figure out what you want to get out of it, and it's always a foundational thing. But you also need to be thinking about how you're going to run it across the organization, and also how you're going to how do you going to enable people in this journey. So I can give you a couple of examples. So the one thing that we decided to do is we have talented people everywhere, and we understand that the function is the one who the functional expertise is super important, right? So centralizing it and saying, hey, we're going to solve it for everything is not going to work. So what we did is we created like federated system where every function has what we call AI stewards, and they own the roadmap, and they have a team that actually helps to build this expertise in the function and defining what needs to be done. And whether they use cloud cowork, or the tools, they're building the skills, but they're also enabled by a team we call the AI enablement teams that helps to put this set of technologies together, but it's more a set of expertise and enablement and some central technology deployment that we do, but it's a very federated approach, because bureaucracy could just kill you, right? You need to be able to scale. So in practice, how it works is like deploying Claude, as an example, Claude Cowork across the company, developing the skills together with the experts, so the humans can adopt it. But in addition to it, it's a large enablement effort, so to speak. We have champions, leaders within every function who think about specifically how it should work for every role in the organization, and making sure that the humans are supported in this journey.
Yeah, I love that. I think a federated approach, or like hub and spoke models where you have those, those enablement teams, is what I hear works very well when you're starting to get to that larger size. There's a couple things you mentioned there I want to touch on. One is ambient AI, and that idea of once the technology is adopted so broadly, it becomes invisible, right? Your Google Maps kind of analogy of you don't even think about it anymore as AI or as technology, because it's just doing the thing. I think that's a very interesting concept when we think about agentic AI within large companies, like delivering work almost invisibly. And what does that mean for products that you deliver to small companies? But then more specifically around what you mentioned for how you currently structure your team. Let's dig into that for a moment, because that's where a lot of companies are trying to figure out what that balance is. And it sounds like you have kind of functional leaders who are leading AI transformation within their units, but they also are being served by an AI enablement team that is providing the infrastructure, the technology, the data that might enable their use cases. I think one thing with a lot of this right now is having people who help others rethink the process and understand what the technology is capable of. I think it takes a fundamental mindset shift to constantly ask yourself, could this be delegated to AI or not? And in what capacity, and like where are the thresholds that I deem acceptable as far as autonomy and making decisions and all of that. And another one is context, right? Everyone is trying to figure out, how do you take the context that you have in all of these different parts of your business, and potentially unlock it in another business unit that has never had access to that bit of context and could make much better decisions or build workflows on top of that. How do you think, within a 3,000 person company, and I think you personally are managing around 1,000, you have 1,000 people in the engineering org rolling up to you. how do you think about data and information context management across a deployment at scale like this?
Yeah, I think data becomes such a fundamental enabler for any AI transformation. And you see it everywhere. I ran into this with the Pitney Bowes transformation as well. So it's not a new problem.
Hmm.
It's a problem that anybody who spend a lot of time with the data and understanding how to do even what seems to be simple things like, hey, customer 360, or now it's called customer platforms. But how do I build all this information about the customers? It seems such a fundamental thing that everybody should be able to do it. But like thinking about Pitney Bowes and what we had to do there, it's not simple, right? Getting it right, um, it's so not simple. Now, with AI, you can do a lot of things that simplifies it, but I think there are fundamental things that still companies are struggling with. Like data lives everywhere. It's a sales CRM, it's web click streams, it's support calls, it's a billing systems, it's product and how customers interact with the products and all the streams. They're each owned by different departments traditionally, right? On different systems. And sometimes we cannot get over that, right? Can't even agree on what like active user means, right? That's things that traditionally were stopping things companies already. Identity resolution is messy as an example, right? And 80% of actual customer contacts is unstructured, right? So it's like it's even in traditional world, it's been a complicated problem. But now you are also have agents and AIs that need to interact with it. So the semantic layer and being able to enable not only humans in the old days, but agents to be really productive with that, it's really yet another different level of understanding complexity implementation. So that's a problem that we definitely, as a company, constantly like on this journey to get better and better and better. And it's super important, I think, for everybody. Like the world now is a little bit easier than it was 12 years ago, but you have to solve this problem. And one thing that we are doing, we are working like with platforms like a Databricks, right? People do a Snowflake, but that's you. It doesn't. Technology by itself doesn't solve it, but there are companies like that who show you the way, right? So it
Mm.
enables you to accelerate. You are betting on a platform that is scalable, that is workable, and it does help to really have a good strategy upfront around your data, around how you're going to consume this data, not just by humans, but by the systems and agents, and where you get into the level also of governance and how it all works. So I think it's super important for any company to solve, because you cannot get to the next level of transformation with the workflows without having this part of the house in order. So that's definitely
Yeah.
something that requires really focused attention and strategic alignment across your company of how you're doing it.
And as you aim for that and try to build it, right? I think there is, as you spoke about, all of the things around unstructured data that, it's now easier than ever to find ways to structure it in some ways with LLMs and put it into a more structured format, like building these data lakes or warehouses with a Databricks type solution, kind of building that foundation. Governance is a very important part of that. Often gets overlooked. It's not the most exciting thing to talk about, right, with the business leaders who want outcomes necessarily, but everything hinges on that. And how do you think about governance in that world? Do you make agents accountable? Are agents accountable to their humans that are managing them? Like, are there ways that you're starting to apply principles within your company or recommending others uh, for solving that problem?
It is a very interesting problem, right? I think that agents having an identity is absolutely the thing.
Hmm.
I do think that at the end, if you think about who is at the end accountable for it, well, it's humans that run the company, right? It's agents. You cannot hold agents accountable, but you do have to have automated guardrails for the agents. You need to think about how you manage the identity. You need to, and I don't think all of it is actually easy to solve today. I'm sure there are companies that mastered this, but for majority of us in the large enterprises, when we think about the data, we are on this journey to make sure that we are really got it right, and we have to do it for our customers as well, right? We are super focused on making sure that our customers can trust our agents, right? And it goes back to the same principle. You have to earn this trust. So the traceability, right? And thinking about how to do it, not that you're just saying, hey, is it okay if I do that? Because that's not scalable, right? We got all these questions from the agents all the time, and half of the time people are just, I don't know, sure, go ahead. I need to go, right? To get to the next level. And that's not also very scalable. So you have to set it up in your products in such a way that you iteratively get there. And you need to think about it, how to do it, not just put every question to the humans in an annoying way, right? So this design of experiences around the agents, and as you're introducing autonomous, potentially let humans have to be able to work with it before you trust it to go and do more and more. So you could start by saying, hey, I will ask you, I will be very transparent of what I'm going to do. This is my plan. Are you feeling comfortable? This is a high risk task that you just need to pay attention. And you kind of incrementally uh, let humans kind of let it go, right? And that's work that works in many high risk environments. Obviously, if it's something um, like AI receptionist, for example, right? Like where we have a very high level of confidence that we have the right level of information, the agents are very reliable. That's not this type of environment, but where you need to, like, you still have to be able to have a guardrails and be very traceable and make sure that humans can verify it, like, or observability is there. If our customers implement observability and we do the observability, right? So it's still very important, but there are more um, situations where you could do potentially more damage. Like, so they're risky if you're managing your IT environment with autonomous agents, AI agents. You have to think about it more, right? You have to be able to make sure that you don't do anything that it potentially could um, impact negatively your customers. So the thoughts there have to be much deeper. And I think from the companies that are bringing um, AI into their environment, they should be very thoughtful about how the governance and rules, how they are thinking about it, especially in the enterprises. That's usually um, more like there are CISOs and specialists. So there, I feel like it's probably um, in many situations more complex to implement, but also there are people who are focused on that. We are also trying to make sure that in SMB world, we are equally thoughtful and can guide our SMBs so they don't get into situations that potentially can impact them or impact their customers.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense as far as the different approaches across those, two company types and this idea of uh, progressive development of autonomy, I guess, for lack of a better term, right? To allow people to select into that. How cognizant do you think businesses are of those risks? I think, as you mentioned, the large companies have CISOs. They're very aware of some of the risks, you know, the risks of losing agents on their IT systems or kind of like DevOps or critical infrastructure. In small businesses, do you see the same level of awareness? Is trust as big of an issue, or does it manifest in different ways because they just have, they might still have trust concerns, but they're not quite the same. How are you seeing most customers approach this?
I think that in a small and medium, and again, it depends on the business, right?
Hmm.
We work with the customers that are, for example, in a healthcare business, right? So there are areas where it is very sensitive.
True.
And I think this type of companies really do understand, and they understand how important it is, and they definitely pay attention. I do think that the difference is when we bring AI to the small and medium businesses, um, we are trying to really make it in the small incremental parts, right? First of all, we are meeting customers where they are, and an AI journey is AI journey, right? You start with uh, many companies, at least a couple of years ago, and even now, they start with what we would call a productivity AI, right? Give me small chunks. Let me see how it works. Then you go to automation. Then you go to agentic. So you kind of build up your competency and relationship with the vendor as well, right?
Mhm.
How well does it work? So that's our kind of principle. We meet customers where they are, and we work with them. But I think in the small medium businesses, what we see is this adoption is kind of in a smaller, more measurable chunks of functionality, where in the enterprise environment, you also have a complexity of many agents, for example, working together, right? Many more integrations into different data sources, many more identities, many more vendors, that where these environments become more complex. So it makes sense that in this environment, the CISOs and internal expertise required to be significantly higher.
Yeah, it's an interesting one in enterprise too, where obviously these are probabilistic systems, and as the chain of reasoning gets more complex or the number of integrations and functions gets more complex, the level of accuracy across the entire task goes down, and then the enterprise is doing thousands of those tasks a minute maybe. It feels there's a very different level of comfort you have to have with, the unknown outcome in that scenario. I mean, you have seen AI hype cycles over the years, right? We have been through AI winters, I know that, and, we've seen, like, expert systems, neurosymbolic systems, generative AI. Now there's just been this evolution. Does it feel different to you today, or is it the same story dressed up in new clothes?
I would say it's different. Of course, there are similarities, right? But we all probably can come up with a lot of similarities as you live through different cycles of hype and new technology emerging. But I think that there are certain three things that I would say they're different. The first, the adoption, right? You could
Mm.
see the adoption uh, really, really high for AI, and it was very, very fast. I, I, I I cannot say no previous technology wave achieved that this quickly, but if we look at Go to ChatGPT, and it became such a big part of how we live today, right? So in AI specifically, right, previous waves required data scientists, specialized infrastructure, long integration timeframes, and this barrier is gone.
Hmm.
which is interesting. Um, I think second one is probably agency. Previous AI waves gave you a tool, and this wave gives you an actor.
Hmm.
It's AI that operates autonomously in your system and makes decisions and reasons and executes workflows, which is super powerful, but also could go rogue too, right? It's a very qualitative shift, not just a scale shift. I think it's a different story altogether, and this is why
Hmm.
governance moved from nice to have to a design requirement, right? You're not configuring software anymore. You're managing something that acts on your behalf. It's a very different thing. Um, and the third one, I think it's actually an interesting, and you see it in recent uh, news about the graduations. But I think there is this over, on one hand, over reliance
Hmm.
on AI as kind of a failure mode, but it's also a concern that bringing AI kind of erodes your potential skills. But you could think about it like every previous AI wave failed because the technology wasn't accessible enough,
Hmm.
and this wave has kind of a new problem. So if we look again, pulse of work data that we have, like it shows that 39% of employees feel AI is already eroding their skills. I don't think you've never seen it before, at least in the technology. And so the challenge kind of flipped. It's just not getting people to use AI. It's making sure that they're using in a way that keep their judgments sharp, right? I think this is three that I would call out.
I think those are very, very good things to call out. And to your last point, it is a very interesting moment, right? You're seeing, I mean, you mentioned the graduation speeches. There is, the backlash to all the data centers, the trillions of dollars in capex being invested in building this all over the world. But on the skill, on the fundamental level, it is. I noticed that personally in my work, right? I'm in go to market. I'm managing multiple agents every day. I was telling my wife yesterday, sitting down, that I think I need to start blocking time in my calendar every week to not use AI in order to focus on the like deep thinking problems that I need to solve in the business and to take a step back because there is the incredible potential for transforming how you work. There is the risk of cognitive offloading in many things as well. And yet it's all something I think we're all figuring out together in this strange moment where you could take the historical perspective and say, well, every technology wave, everyone said we were going to lose all the critical skill sets that make us human. This one does feel fundamentally different in some ways, just by nature of what it is we might be losing or like what it's doing to media and content and all of the things that we felt were reserved for human creation and attention. And so I do think it's an incredibly interesting moment to live in. 5 years from now for you, uh, where do you see this going? And how do you see, the companies that have successfully transformed, what did they get right compared to the others?
I think that if we look at from the work perspective, right? If we look at the Gartner's projection and just apply it to IT, the Gartner says by 2030, 0% of IT work will be purely human, right? 75% human and AI working together, 25 fully autonomous, whatever it is. But it's not a distant scenario. We actually see a lot of this already happening in the frontier companies, in the companies that are AI first companies. That's already is, right? Um, so I think the companies that are going to succeed, um, they will, the company that truly transform They will have measurably different cost structure, measurably different employee productivity, and just acceleration and problem solving and just innovation that is going to be truly remarkable. Because AI will be embedded in how they operate, how they work, how they live, how they approach, how we approach the problems, right? It's a different way of, it's reimagining, right? It's reimagining
Mm.
everything. I think and it's also adds a lot of expectations on humans, right? Being curious, being constantly thinking, and for anybody who has been running these agents, many agents, it's exhausting today, right? It is hard. So there is a human aspect of it. You're looking for the talent, you're looking for people who actually want and can succeed in this world of constant change, constant growth, constant transformation. And it is it's a lot of work for humans to get to this point. And I think the companies that are going to succeed would be very thoughtful about it, right? How do they do it? How to make humans and AI reach the full potential together?
I agree. I think it will be one of the most important questions we have in the future of work. AI is not replacing all of our work. It is changing the nature of it, and it feels like everyone who uses AI a lot is working probably even more than they ever have in their lives, especially on the frontier. So many interesting questions. That's all we have time for today, Olga, but I really enjoyed this conversation. I'm sure everyone listening right now has as well. If they want to follow your work and go to, where should they go?
Well, they can go to goto.com. I have blogs and things of this nature on it, and there is generally a lot of other information from other contributors. So please take a look.
Yeah, well, please go check it out. That was Olga Lagunova, Chief Innovation and Technology Officer at GoTo. Olga, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Ben. Pleasure.